start rolling.
Oh, Rafa, do you want questions as we go, or do you want holding questions till the end, except for clarifying the chat?
Whatever is the way that you prefer to do it. I normally defer to the host, but I'm okay with being interrupted. That's
Okay.
fine with me, because people, if somebody's has enough interest to speak up and ask a question, I'm motivated to give it a shot.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, you hear that, everyone? Feel free to ask questions as we go. Put them in the chat or save
Yeah,
them to the
because
end.
it's a relatively small group. When you're dealing with, if you were dealing with hundreds, it's probably wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah, that could get
Yeah.
chaotic. Cool. We'll also have some time at the end for questions if people don't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we'll give everyone maybe just a couple more minutes to join and then we'll get started. But thanks for everyone who's made it so far. Hope we're all excited to learn about the wonderful world of composting.
I can keep an eye on the waiting room, Mary.
Perfect. Okay. We'll get going. As I said, thank you everyone for joining for today's final summer educational webinar series with CAZCA. Today we have Rafa Crevoshay, who is a certified crop advisor, certified professional horticulturist, certified professional agronomist, and technical service provider, who will be presenting on compost and all its complexities. And as we said before, if anyone missed it, feel free to raise your hand, interrupt, put in the chat if you have any questions as Rita goes along, or there'll be like 15, 20 minutes at the end for a Q&A. Take it away, Rita.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mary. Yeah, compost. It's something that hasn't. It's a sore point for me that it hasn't received the detailed attention that it deserves. There's a general belief among the casual public that compost is compost, and that's the end of it. That's the end of the story. It's not so. There are all kinds of compost, and I'm going to talk about half a dozen or so variations of compost, how they're made, what goes into them, how they're used, and what's happening in general in the process of compost making. Now, this is not going to describe every compost that exists in the world because there are dozens and dozens of variations, and that's important to keep in mind. It's also important to keep in mind the key protocols for making compost because that's what can really make the difference. You can vary the ingredients, but the key is to respect those conditions under which we make the compost. So let's roll this out. Now this is a general description of the major types of compost. Um, First of all, what are the characteristics of high quality compost? One is thermophilic. Thermophilic means heat loving. Now, what we mean by heat loving is that we construct the ingredients into piles or heaps, and it generates on its own independently high heat, 140 degrees plus. And this is a very critical factor in making high quality compost. So remember that word thermophilic. We're going to keep using it as we go through it. Then it's all about microbes. Now, the microbes that are most important in compost are bacteria and fungi. They're not the only microbes in the soil. There are a bunch of other ones, but they're not as significant. They don't have the influence that fungi and bacteria have. But they're significant. There's even a class of microbes called microfauna, which are tiny animals, is what it means. It means tiny animals. And that includes things like nematodes, which are kind of microscopic worms. You can't even see them with the naked eye, but they play a significant role in breaking down organic matter and disease, some positive for disease, some negative for disease. But the point is there's a huge quantity and variety of microbes that inhabit the soil. The soil it's the underworld that has always been feared by mankind. People have mythologized it, and we talk about demons and the underworld and all that stuff. The truth about the underworld is it's a fabulous place teeming with life of all kinds. Thing is, you can't see it. If you don't have a good microscope, you never know it's there for the most part. But this is what it is. It's a as critical of an environment for life as the environment that we live in above ground. We just don't see it, but we depend on it. We do depend on it. And then talking about generic waste, some composts uh, are just destinations for waste, and that's okay in a way. Uh, for example, there's a lot of municipalities that are collecting people's organic garbage nowadays, which is a good thing. It gives it a destination and a home. What the weakness of that is that material needs to go back to the backyards that it came from. And typically it doesn't. It gets stuck and it goes elsewhere. It needs to be, that would complete the process if we could do that. And then there's the old standby leaf mulch, which is basically more plentiful in eastern and northern regions where they have winters, where the trees defoliate in the fall and they get massive amounts of leaves. That's a great compost ingredient. But there's a list here of some of the key types of compost. There's manure-based thermophilic compost. So we just discussed what thermophilic means. And what we're talking about here is compost that consists of a big amount of a manure, at least 50%, maybe 80 or 90% of manure. And that can be, typically it's cow manure or horse manure, but it can be any kind of manure. And it's mixed with straw or some kind of organic matter. And it's built into thermophilic piles and makes a very, very good quality compost. And then there's spent mushroom compost. Now this is not that available, but anywhere where there's a mushroom farm, it is available. And the reason I put it in there is that the mushroom farmers were the real inventors of thermophilic compost. They've been doing it for a long time, a lot longer than anybody else has been doing it, because they're making a compost in which they can grow mushrooms. And they had to get it right, and they did get it right. So once the mushrooms have been harvested and the crop is finished, that material is removed from the mushroom houses and it's available to gardeners. And I don't know of any mushroom farm that has a problem getting rid of it, because everybody who uses it knows that it is among the very best compost available, because the mushroom farmers put so much attention to it. Then there's some upgrades to that, taking thermophilic compost and putting some special ingredients in it, like seafood waste, seafood cannery waste, that sort of thing. Adds a lot of protein to the mix. Then there's the municipal facility thermophilic compost, which we just talked about, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the great benefit to that is that, at least, even though it's made of a variety of organic wastes, which doesn't give you great consistency, but they still process it with thermophilic conditions. So it gets heated up, and that's important because it kills the weed seeds. And if you're gardening, you know how important that is. Then there's backyard compost. Everybody's can have their pile in the backyard, and they should have their pile in the backyard. You can send it all to the municipal dump, but you can also make it in your backyard, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes too. And then there is the ultimate compost, which is vermicompost, worm compost, or worm castings. That there's nothing better than that. Problem is, it's a big operation to convert your other composts from their current state into worm compost. That's basically what you have to do. And the goal of worm compost is it produces what worm compost really, its deeper meaning is in the context of all of these materials, is that it has an endowment of microbes that can't be matched by any other compost. It's off the chart. And I want to talk about microbes in a moment too. So this is what thermophilic compost looks like after about 3 weeks at the high temperatures. After about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the heating cools down, stops, and it stabilizes. And what you see is this kind of snowflake effect throughout the compost. That's called Actinobacter bacterium. Now, what's distinctive about this is that at this point in the composting process, this stuff smells like the forest floor. You can grab a handful of it and stick your nose in it, and you'll think you're in heaven. It's fully processed. It's wonderful, and the confirmation is this bacteria, which looks like snowflakes. That's all over it. So what's happening? Here's what's happening in compost in a general sense. You've got intense microbial activity, bacteria, fungi, combinations of those, and even some other factors of living organisms that are interacting with the organic matter. Now, bacteria will do a lot of things for us as we make compost. There are bacteria that fix nitrogen. They take nitrogen out of the air. Our atmosphere is mostly nitrogen. I think I don't know, what is it, like 60% nitrogen or something like that. Anyway, it's much more nitrogen in the air than oxygen. And these bacteria can take it from the air and fix it. What it means by fixing is that it stores it in a form that becomes available to plants. That's amazing when you think about it. There are also nitrification bacteria that converts ammonia to plant usable nitrates. It's a kind of a similar function, but it's different. And they can also work on phosphorus, converting phosphorus to a soluble form. That's critical. These three functions are things that basically replace the need for synthetic fertilizers. It's just nature working its course, fixing nitrogen, converting ammonia to nitrates, making phosphorus available. These are items that a lot of people spend a lot of money to buy chemical fertilizers with, but it shows that it's really not necessary. And I advocate that theme that we don't need to, especially in terms of if you're a gardener, you don't need those things. You don't need to spend any money on these kind of chemicals. And then another thing that the bacteria do is produce antibiotics that can have a powerful effect on various plant diseases, and they can arrest them and neutralize them. Now, fungi are a big deal. Now, here's the thing about fungi. When you look at old growth forests, and I'm talking about forests that have been undisturbed for a century or two, or even 4 or 5. There are a lot of these around, actually. They have very extensive networks of fungi that are underground. And these fungi perform all kinds of what they call ecosystem services. They will transfer water from one tree to another tree species. They sense it. They know that the other tree needs water, the other one has a surplus of water. They mediate that. They also do a similar kind of function with diseases. They can prevent plants from pathogens. They store a lot of carbon. This is carbon sequestration. Has everything to do with global warming. It's all about carbon sequestration. And they can also promote root growth through enzyme production. Now, these things that I'm mentioning about fungi and bacteria, they're just a few of the things. There are a lot more things. But I wanna point out something, that phenomenon with the old growth forests doesn't exist in farms and gardens. Why? Because typically everybody has been plowing up their soil every year for the last 10, 12,000 years. Everybody does it. And if you do that, you interrupt the establishment of those fungal networks. So you can't duplicate under those conditions what we have in these old forest soils. So this is something to bear in mind, and there's now a new way of approaching agriculture and approaching gardening, which does not disturb the soil. You don't dig things up. You just drill seeds into the ground and leaving it as it is, and that will give these fungal networks a chance to establish themselves and do the work that they're very well suited for. And then finally, there's soil cohesion. Both bacteria and fungi exude gooey stuff that helps glue soil particles together, so we get what we call soil aggregates, and they're very important in the soil structure of a healthy soil. This needs to be addressed. Because without that, you get a very silty, grainy soil that doesn't hold together, that erodes quickly, that doesn't hold water. It just doesn't do the job that healthy soil does. So that's kind of the overview of what happens in a what happens with what the microbes do in an effective ecosystem services context. Now let's look at some of the individual iterations of compost making. Now here's the big one: is manure-based thermophilic compost. And there it is. There are your stacks of manure. This was taken in the Chicago area. Um, this is a dairy farm that dedicates virtually all of its manure to composting. So they make these huge stacks. Those stacks are about 8 to 10 feet tall, and they're turned by huge machines which aerate them and promote the high heat. And you can see this is the dead of winter, and they're steaming like hell because they're still hot, and the compost is produced through this generous heat. Now there are more and more of these farms around the country that are just producing this compost, and they're available to gardeners. I understand most of the participants in this seminar are not actual farmers, but are likely to be gardeners. And if you're a gardener, you can find a source like this near you and go get yourself a small load, and it's cheap. It's really cheap, and you're doing the environment a favor because you're closing the gap as you recycle this into the active production of produce, and you're kind of closing the circle. So the manure goes to the compost yard, the compost yard produces it for you, you put it into your garden, and the cycle continues on that basis. So it's usually cow manure is used in this, and because the dairy farms are the key for most of these operations nationally. There are huge lots of manure, huge mountains of manure stacked up where nobody's done anything with them. They're just kind of dumps, manure dumps that are scattered around the country. And that needs to be corrected. And little by little, there are more of these operations springing up and making manure-based thermophilic compost. And then there are some producers, mostly in coastal regions, that can even upgrade their manure-based thermophilic compost using fish and shellfish processing waste, fish meal. Seaweed is a great addition. It turns out that it's not really salty, but it's got all kinds of minerals and even hormonal chemicals that are growth promoting for plants, and it adds a lot of fertility to the mix. So there's another option. And then there's the spent mushroom compost that I mentioned. Not a lot more to say about that, but they do have their own unique ingredients. For example, they'll add grape pumice. That's been found to be this is the waste from wineries, from crushing the grapes. It's what's left over. It's a good use for it, and it's a nutritional boost for the mushrooms and for the plants later. And it's free. I mean, you can buy it, I think, some places, but typically it's free if you go pick it up. Backyard compost. Well, everybody knows what this is. It's really a good way to utilize a lot of your kitchen waste, your kitchen scraps and that, but it's not advisable to use leftover meat scraps and that sort of thing. That's a surefire way to attract rats and other rodents, and it should be avoided. So you're left with organic vegetable matter. The thing is, it's difficult in most garden situations, most backyard situations, to create the thermophilic functioning that we've seen earlier. Um, Normally, those piles will just sit, and because there isn't any heat activated on the material, they take much longer to break down. They can take up to a year and a half or 2 years for the compost to be fully processed. Typically, it won't kill weed seeds. So, there are some drawbacks to it, but the advantages are you're using up this organic waste that you're generating from your kitchen, and that's got to be positive. You don't have to use it on your produce. You can use it on landscape plants as well. So there are some workarounds there, but it can be a useful mulch on vegetables, on your raised beds and that sort of thing. Now here's a real stinker, literally. It's composted sewage waste. There are some big businesses producing this stuff, and it's popular with a certain clientele. Basically, it's sewage waste that's processed. Technically it's composted, but it's done in a fixed mechanical setting. Okay, it's all good up to that point. The problem is there's no way to separate out a lot of toxic material that goes into sewage. I think we all know that, things like unused prescription drugs can go down the toilet. Other kinds of poisons and toxins can go in there, and there's no separating them once they're down there, and there's no separating them from the final product. So what you have is a product that's really pretty fertile. It has good nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium levels, and it's really helpful for certain kinds of plants, for a lot of plants, but it's not safe to use it on food. You shouldn't use it on food. That doesn't mean that some people don't use it on food, but they shouldn't be using it. It's absolutely excluded from organic certification. You can't use it. It will never get certified as organic because it's not organic. It's got too many poisons in it. But it could be used to advantage on municipal landscapes, parks, things like that, non-food destinations. Technically, even that is inadvisable because what about the fate of those toxins? We really can't measure them. But as we look to the future, human waste really is in the future of compost. Human waste is a good manure. It's a good manure for compost. That's human waste in its pure form, not contaminated by pharmaceuticals or other products. But the thing is, we're a long way off from using human waste. For one thing, we've constructed this vast toilet system which doesn't discriminate and doesn't segregate it from the other stuff, for one thing. And we would have to rethink the way we handle our human waste and redefine the destination of it and how it's separated and protected. But it has been used historically. Chinese have used it. Chinese farmers have used human waste for centuries. Right now, I'm not sure. I think things have changed there, but there have been abundant documentation of that. It works. It works very well, and it compares well to cow, horse, chicken, pig, all of those other manures. Then there's the municipal compost, which basically collects organic waste from wherever, whenever, whatever restaurants, businesses, homes. It's indiscriminate in its vetting of raw materials, and it does pile them up and uses the thermophilic properties to break down the organic material. It's not bad stuff, really. It's not great. I gave a 3 stars rating. I think there it is. There's my rating. 3 stars compared to a 4 star for a manure-based thermophilic compost, because it's not quite as good. It doesn't have the manure is gold. It's got abundant resources of fertility in it. This has no manure, so it doesn't have that kind of rich addition of fertile elements. And then there's vermicompost. Vermicompost is the best of the best of the best. There's nothing like it. Why? Why and what? Well, there's a lot of whys. Again, it all comes down to the microbes and the worms eating their raw material. Whether it can start with a high quality manure-based thermophilic compost. It could start with municipal organic compost, organic matter compost is what I mean. It could even start with backyard compost. You can make vermicompost in a lot of ways. What we're talking about is the worms consuming the material and basically making it how to say this? The worms kind of seed the organic material with a huge array of microbes, fungi, bacteria, and other microorganisms, making it by a factor of multiples much more rich, hugely more rich in microbial activity than the best manure-based thermophilic compost. So it's really kind of gold. The problem is it's more expensive. It's more expensive to make it. It's a lot of work. You can do it at home. There are all kinds of home-based workaround kits for feeding making a little worm farm in your own backyard or in your own basement. That's great, but you will get a limited amount of material from that. And to purchase this stuff from a commercial facility, and that's what you see on the right in that photo. That is a commercial worm bin. It's filled with high quality compost, and the worms are fed to it. The worms basically they're called epigeic. They start at the bottom and they work their way to the top. And as they finish the bottom, the finished vermicompost is taken from the bottom. It falls out through the bottom located sieve, and that's the prepared vermicompost that is so microbially rich. So this all happens courtesy of the gut of the earthworm. That's what goes on. The microbes are transferred in that process as the earthworms consume this stuff and excrete it. Well, that's pretty much the overview of the complexity of composts and the diversity of composts. There's just a lot more to it than just making a pile of organic matter and waiting for it to decompose and be ready to plant. But I wanted to at least convey uh, this biodiversity factor to you as you think about compost, because it's a much more complex process than people normally think of it as. Also, if you're interested in learning more or even becoming certified as a compost expert, the U.S. Composting Council uh, offers a course, a certification course, and also there's an older one that I took years ago at the University of Maine on composting. They have a very good program too. So these are resources available to those of you that really want to go further and actually get certified and gain some deeper knowledge of this phenomenon and how to manage it. And Mary, that wraps it up pretty much. And if there are any questions, I'll be delighted to hear them.
Thank you so much, Rita. That was awesome. I learned a lot.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions for Rita about compost? You can unmute or put it in the chat. Catherine says, I have failed in the past and want to try again. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. That's awesome.
Yeah, keep trying because you may even be making a different kind of compost. It could be, anything you put together is going to have some kind of result. So don't be discouraged, and eventually you'll find something that works for you and works for your needs.
And she asked any suggestions for desert like us?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is, it's about moisture. To make compost in the open air in the desert is going to be a struggle. So to the extent that you can have a roof over it, even a tarp on posts, just to shade it out, give it some shade in the heat of the day, so it's not just constantly drying out. That would help a lot. The heat isn't going to bother it, but that drying process could really set you back.
Yeah. Thank you. We have some other questions in the chat, but first we'll go to Lisa with your hand raised.
Hi. Yeah. So, um, I agree with what you said about like not digging up or churning the soil, more than is necessary or if possible. So I was curious how that then applies to like when you're adding new compost. Would you just lay it on top of like an existing garden bed, or would you kind of lightly mix that into the existing soil or something else?
Yeah, good question. What I'm talking about when I talk about no-till, I'm talking about no-till, not tilling the soil anymore. And that is the key to regenerative farming. This is, I mean, to be totally transparent about it, that's what I intend to talk about when I talk about no-till. You want to avoid it. So there's a couple of things to consider. One is that before you plant anything, when you are establishing your garden, let's say you have a raised bed, which is pretty popular nowadays, the goal should be to put as much compost as you can possibly fit into your raised bed. And people have been shy about this. The typical the typical garden soil has maybe on a really good day 5% organic matter. If you fill your raised bed with manure-based thermophilic compost, fill it, you're filling it with 100% organic matter. That's a major departure from the conventional way to garden. So that if you can start that way, you're way ahead of the pack. If you already have a kind of a conventionally soil-based arrangement, and your question is, how do I add the compost? Just add it, just layer it on top, 2 inches deep, 4 inches deep, however much you can fit. Just do it because it will integrate into the soil on its own. You can, in some circumstances, kind of scrape it in lightly, though you're not going to get much benefit from that. Um, it's not really going to impact your garden, but surprisingly, just layering on high quality compost on top will integrate it and make a difference in the short term.
Thank you so much.
Well, and then back to the chat. So Catherine says, thinking of getting a food mill. Some have biota input. What do you think?
A food mill for what? For grinding grain? Or I'm not sure what she means.
Later on she says, I'm thinking of using a mill to grind up food, then mix in soil so animals don't eat it, but then it won't get hot,
I see,
more
I
like
see.
mulch.
She's grinding up organic waste. Um, well, that's a step in the right direction, but it doesn't really get us there because that waste still has to be broken down into a form that plants can use, and just grinding it won't do it. Um, as far as protecting it from depredations of garden animals, um, it would be best you can grind it up and put it into a compost bin and have that protected by chicken wire or something that would exclude animal predators on it. But I would emphasize that just grinding it is only one step toward uh, effective breakdown of the organic matter.
Um, we have, how long does good compost stay viable after we buy it?
It can be viable for a long time, as long as there's a couple of things to take into consideration. One is to keep it moist, because if it dries out over a long period of time, it's going to be compromised. But it can last quite a long time, and it's going to as it's going to continue to age and continue to react with bacteria. So it's not as though there's um, a due date on it. Uh, you know, if properly stored and managed, it could last a couple of years, depending on the quality of the compost and what's in it and all that. Though in a couple of years, if you're not using it in your garden, you're not gardening. You know, you really should be applying it in its fresher form.
And then Catherine is asking if adding cardboard is helpful.
Cardboard's okay stuff. I mean, you know, it's pretty innocuous, but basically it's wood fiber, or it's what they call lignaceous. It's from lignans and fibers, and just formed into this stuff that we use and we call cardboard. And it's organic matter typically. I guess in some forms of cardboard have things in it that are questionable for use in gardening, but typically you can use that, and it's there's nothing wrong with it. The thing is, it's not going to add a whole lot. It won't bring fertility to your soil because it doesn't have much in it. It's a pretty neutral kind of source, but it is organic matter. It will be used by bacteria and fungi, and can be a significant player, among all of the other factors and ingredients. Uh, Absolutely, you can use it, and if you have a lot of it around, But the thing is, you should use it with some ingredient that will balance it off. So if you can put in some kind of nitrogen to help break it down, that would make a mistake. There's the old um, kind of wisdom that you need brown material and green material. Well, that what it's talking about is the brown material is usually your lignaceous matter that isn't rich in fertility, and the green matter is your fresher stuff that will bring that nitrogen in and help to break down the other stuff. And between the two of them, you could reach a balance. So that's something to keep in mind.
Cool. That was all the questions. We have a couple comments from Joan saying good results with watering the compost regularly, and birds love the finished compost as a topping around the shrubs. An added bonus. Awesome. And I just wanted to add, if you enjoyed today's webinar and you want to learn even more or read more about compost, in our recently published Desert Landscaping Guide, we have a whole chapter on composting that I'm putting in the chat now. There you go, check that out. Cool. Does anyone else have any other questions? No, if not, I just want to thank everybody for showing up today, listening, learning. Rita, thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you for rounding us out for our summer educational series. This was great.
Thanks. It's one of my favorite topics. I love talking about compost.
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
love hearing about it. We love hearing you talk about it. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your afternoon.